Hello, and welcome back to Thecrimereel. For this week's true crime story, we shall be looking at the life of Rebecca Lucille Schaeffer. Rebecca was born in Eugene, Oregon on November the 6th, 1967. She was the only child of Dana and Benson Schaeffer. Dana was a writer and teacher who worked at Portland Community College, and Benson was a child psychologist who had trained at UCLA. The family moved from Eugene to Portland in Oregon, where Rebecca attended Lincoln High School. They lived in Laurelhurst, which was an affluent community in the northeast side of the city. Rebecca was a happy and confident young lady who had a close relationship with both of her parents. She was intelligent and ambitious and became part of the high school's talented and gifted program. She originally wanted to become a rabbi, but during her junior year in high school, her hairdresser put her in touch with a talent agency, and Rebecca was soon modelling back to school wear in various catalogues. When she was 16 years old, she moved across the country to New York to complete a summer internship. Having fallen in love with life in the city, she then decided to complete her education at the Professional Children's School in New York. This was an academy for aspiring actors and dancers, which she attended while simultaneously focusing on her modelling and acting careers. Rebecca's parents supported her decisions and aspirations despite their concerns about their young daughter living so far away from home. Rebecca continued to promote herself as a model, even going to Japan in 1985 to complete some modelling work which she could add to her portfolio. However, at 5'7" tall, she was 2 inches shorter than the minimum height for fashion models at the time, and soon decided to pursue acting over her modelling career. She soon found some TV roles, initially a minor walk-on part in Radio Days, and then a temporary part on the soap opera One Life to Live. When Rebecca was 18, she returned to the West Coast after landing a role in the TV sitcom My Sister Sam. She was cast as Patty, the younger sister of the titular character Sam, who was played by Pam Dawber. Pam had already found fame as Mindy in the sitcom Mork and Mindy, starring alongside Robin Williams, so to be cast in this role was a big break for the relatively inexperienced Rebecca. Her cast members soon became like her extended family, and she settled into life in Los Angeles. She was reported to be very beautiful, very sweet, but a little bit naive. The first season of My Sister Sam aired in October 1986 and was a success from the start. Rebecca appeared on the cover of 17 magazine and also, along with Pam Dawber, on the cover of TV Guide, which at the time was the #1 magazine in the US with over 40 million weekly readers. She also co-hosted the CBS Thanksgiving Parade. At the age of 19, Rebecca went on a blind date with Brad Silberling, who later became a successful film producer and director, and they soon began dating. Her career and personal life were both in a great place, but she remained extremely grounded and never perceived herself as being a celebrity. She was popular, friendly, and extremely humble. The second series of My Sister Sam aired in late 1987 but was moved to a different time slot and the ratings dropped significantly. The show was not renewed and the final episode aired on April 12, 1988. It wasn't long before Rebecca secured several film roles. Now aged 20, she was starting to star in more sophisticated roles, unlike the young, cute Patty who she had played in My Sister Sam. These new roles were unlike anything she had done before, and it was clear that she was reaching a new audience and level of fame. Rebecca moved to a 1940s apartment at 120 North Sweetzer Avenue in the Fairfax district of LA. In early 1989, she became a spokesperson for Thursday's Child, a charity that worked to support vulnerable children, teens and young adults. During the summer of 1989, Rebecca was picked to audition for the role of Mary Corleone, the daughter of Al Pacino's character in Godfather 3. Both her agent Jonathan Howard and her father Benson both spoke to her in the day or two before the audition, and Rebecca could hardly contain her excitement about the prospect of auditioning for a role in this iconic film series. A meeting was booked with Francis Ford Coppola at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, the 18th of July 1989. At 10:15 a.m. that morning, the bell rang at Rebecca's apartment. The intercom system was broken, so Rebecca went to answer the door herself. Standing in front of her was a 19-year-old man by the name of Robert John BARDO. Robert was born on the 2nd of January 1970. He was the youngest of 7 children born to Philip and June BARDO. Philip was an Air Force officer who met June in Japan. The family moved around a lot during Robert's younger years before eventually settling in Tucson, Arizona in the early 1980s. It is reported that Robert had a very troubled childhood. He suffered from neglect and abuse at the hands of his mother, father and older brother. Neighbours mentioned that he would often be aggressive toward them for no apparent reason. He was a bright child, achieving good grades in high school, but his unusual behaviour became ever more noticeable. He would write letters to one of his teachers talking about self-harming and murder, and the school urged his parents to get him psychiatric help. Other than a few counselling sessions, it would seem that this advice was not taken. During his early teens, Robert stole money from his mother and bought a bus ticket to Maine. He had intended to find a young peace activist named Samantha Smith, but was stopped by the authorities before he had a chance to board the bus. Robert had become increasingly obsessed with her. Tragically, she died in a plane crash not long after. At the age of 15, Robert spent a short time in a foster home before being admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Here he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and it was noticed that he was severely emotionally troubled and that his family was both pathological and dysfunctional. Robert seemed to be making progress at the hospital, but after just a month his parents removed him from the facility. Robert did not return to school, and despite his obvious intelligence, without a high school diploma, he struggled to find a job. He eventually started work as a janitor at a branch of the Jack in the Box burger chain. Then in 1986, Robert came across the sitcom My Sister Sam, and a new obsession was formed. Robert could not stop thinking about what he described as the brilliant, pretty, outrageous and innocent character played by Rebecca. He started to write fan letters to her, believing that she had the personality that she displayed in her on-screen character. In 1987, Rebecca responded to one of these letters with the comment that it was one of the nicest she had ever received. In Robert's mind, this was proof that his feelings were reciprocated. Robert decided to travel to California to meet Rebecca in person, arriving at the Warner Brothers studio in Burbank with a huge teddy bear and flowers for her. However, security simply turned him away. Robert was determined. He came back later, and when he was refused entry again, he became agitated and angry. The police were never notified of this incident. With no mental health support, an abusive family, and working in a job which he found unrewarding, Robert started to become increasingly disruptive. He was arrested 3 times during 1988 and early 1989 for domestic violence and antisocial behaviour. He pleaded no contest each time and was sentenced to an unsupervised counselling programme. He never enrolled. In 1989, the film Scenes from the Class Struggle in Beverly Hills was released. Rebecca played the role of Zandra in this black comedy, which included her first romantic scene. Upon seeing this scene, something snapped in Robert. He could not believe that she had betrayed him and considered this a loss of her innocence. On the 1st of June 1989, Robert visited the AA Investigators Detective Agency, carrying a folder with several letters from Rebecca and a glossy photograph that she had signed and sent to him. He managed to convince the investigator that he was trying to track down an old friend and paid the $300 fee for them to find her home address. Using California motor vehicle registration information, it didn't take long for Robert to be given the details of where Rebecca lived. On Monday 17th of July 1989, Robert boarded an overnight Greyhound bus from Tucson to Los Angeles, and after wandering around the city for a while, found his way to 120 North SWEETZER Avenue. At 10:15 a.m. he rang the doorbell to Rebecca's apartment and she opened the door. Robert showed her the letter and photograph which he had sent to him. He explained to her that he was her biggest fan, and Rebecca thanked him, politely excused herself, shook his hand and told him that she must go as she was getting ready for an audition. After his initial elation that he had met his idol in person, Robert started to feel rejected because he felt that she had not spent long enough time with him. Robert decided to return to the house. After ringing the doorbell again, Rebecca answered but was less friendly than before, as she now felt that Robert was intruding in her life and wasting her time as she was preparing for her important audition. Robert said that he had forgotten to give her something. He pulled out a handgun and shot her once in the chest. As she fell backwards into the doorway, she screamed out, "Why?" After contemplating whether he should end his life and die on top of her, Robert eventually decided to flee the scene. A writer by the name of Richard Goldman, who lived across the street from Rebecca, heard what he initially thought was a car backfiring before seeing a man in a yellow shirt running away from the area and a woman's legs protruding from the arched entrance to the house opposite. An ambulance was called and Rebecca was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Hospital, where she was pronounced dead. Rebecca's agent Jonathan Howard had the heartbreaking task of calling Rebecca's parents to tell them that their daughter had been murdered. The following day in Tucson, Arizona, police received a call that a man had been running in traffic along the highway, shouting that he had killed Rebecca Schaeffer. When police arrived, he appeared to be walking obliviously through the traffic as though he wanted to be hit by a car. Robert was arrested and bail was set at $1 million. He was then extradited to California to face trial for the murder of Rebecca Schaeffer. Rebecca's body was returned to Oregon for burial. Rebecca's murder shone a harsh spotlight on the danger and horrors that celebrities could face with obsessed fans. The following year, California passed the first anti-stalking law in the US, which was then introduced in all US states within 2 years. In addition, and at least in part because of Rebecca's death, the US government passed the Driver's Privacy Protection Act, which prohibits state departments of motor vehicles from releasing home addresses. In November 1991, Robert's trial began. The prosecutor, Marcia Clark, most famously known for her work as the lead prosecutor on the O.J. Simpson trial, was determined to get justice for Rebecca. Robert's defence lawyer, Stephen Galindo, defended Robert on the basis that his mental illness rendered him incapable of planning to kill Rebecca, and therefore Robert could only be found guilty of second-degree murder. No jury was present at the trial, and after finishing hearing arguments on December 20th, 1991, Judge Fulgoni found Robert guilty of murder in the first degree. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 16 years later, in 2007, another prisoner who was serving a sentence of 82 years to life stabbed Robert 11 times. Robert was transferred to the Davis Medical Center at the University of California for treatment and made a full recovery. He remains in Avenal State Prison, California, to this day. I will finish today's narration with the thoughts of Rebecca's agent, Jonathan Howard, who stated that not only had he lost a friend, Hollywood had lost a rising star, and the world had lost an angel. Rest in peace, Rebecca, and my condolences to all of Rebecca's family. Thanks very much everyone for listening. As usual, please add any comments down below. Thanks for listening to The Crime Reel. Goodbye. Psst, ABC did a 2-hour special on this to remember 30 years since the murder. It's called 2020, Your Biggest Fan. Thanks very much again. Goodbye.